the biggest frustrations about trying to manage habitat is we generally try to manage whitetails right along with it. I'll tell you right now, I'm sorry to put it this bluntly, but they ain't our deer. They will never be our deer unless we go ahead and put up a high fence. Okay, and then technically you can still argue whether they're truly ours. When you pass that buck up, and I'm not trying to suggest that anybody shoots or don't shoot anything here. I'm just trying to give you real world data. When you pass that buck up, even if no one else shoots him, there's a pretty decent chance he's not going to be around next year. Bucks have much higher natural mortality rates than does do. It's not even funny. Why? Think about it for a second. Just during the rut itself, talking a month to 2 month period, that mature buck on average loses 25 to 30% body weight. Think about what that does to something. Losing 25 to 30% body weight in 1 to 2 month period of time. And then in much of the whitetails range, Midwest, points north, now you're facing winter. Winter is their lowest food supply time of the entire year, and most of those whitetails are actually at that point running negative energy balances, meaning that between the temperature, between the snow, between the amount of work it takes to acquire that food and the limited quantity and qualities of that food, well, I burn more energy than the calories I end up taking in from it. That in itself, now throw in all those ridiculous fights that these bucks get into. If you want to try to put in perspective how much force, how dangerous these fights are, go ahead and take a shed just off of a 3.5-year-old buck and try to snap off a tine sometime. You know, I'm not talking a 4.5, 5.5 with just soda can type bases that get snapped off, which that happens every single year out there. No, I'm talking about just a tine off of a 3.5-year-old buck. When mature bucks get in fights, that is truly some nasty, deadly stuff. And very often, they're not dying right then and there. Remember, they're losing that 25 to 30% body weight. They're entering that seasonal low point of food, where many of them are running negative energy balances, and they're getting the snot literally kicked out of them day after every time they get into a battle with one of these big guys. And these battles are nasty. You end up with a whole bunch of bucks dying from nothing more than the rigors of the rut itself. And now you throw deer disease in there, jeepers, blue tongue and EHD, I don't know why, because it's not geared to do so, but tends to take out more mature bucks. Okay, CWD, for those who are blessed enough to have it, that is even worse. What ends up happening is these deer don't even start dying until they hit about 3.5, 4.5 years old, and then they start dropping like flies, particularly the bucks. Okay, then you throw in deer car vehicle collisions, throw in other hunters. There are so many ridiculous reasons why that buck doesn't survive from last year to the next, and here's another reason why you lose them. Once that buck gets to be mature, he's generally, not always, but generally dominant. That dominant buck can take the very best of the best. So your neighbor over there happens to have a glorious mature buck bedding ridge. And there's nothing more important outside of breeding to a buck than bedding security and having that primo spot to bed. Well, there's X number of spots on that ground to bed. There's none on yours. Those 2.5, 3.5-year-old bucks, they're not man enough to go over there and kick Mr. Big out of those beds. But guess what? When they turn 4, when they turn 5, now all of a sudden they're shifting over to those bedding areas. That is another reason why we lose these bucks year to year, and one of the most common reasons right there. There's nothing we can do about the diseases and all that stuff, realistically, okay? But what we can do to try to turn the ship is, if we have areas that would otherwise work as great mature buck bedding areas, try to get the does out of there. Try to make sure you're not improving those areas with food to suck up even more. See if maybe you can do something to improve. Sometimes the only reason that buck isn't bedding on that point is because there's 3 or 4 trees that blew down and he can't bed there. Look for opportunities like that. Otherwise, what you do is you set buck traps. And you try to make it so that if they do go over the neighbors, they have a reason to come back for your does and your food. But any way you look at it, people, there's all sorts of reasons that buck that you pass this year is not going to end up making it till next year.
Final thoughts, brought to you by Huntworth.
Between natural mortality, diseases, vehicle collisions, neighbors shooting the deer that we wish they wouldn't, which is 1000% their right. If they don't have the right to tell us what we can and can't legally shoot, we don't have the right to tell them either. All we can do is be happy for them when they do. But you add all that stuff up, and there's all sorts of reasons that buck we're passing this year is not showing up next year. Many of them we can do virtually nothing to control. If it is a bedding area issue, you know what we do? We go ahead and we make it so that now Mr. Big can bed on us. If not, well, we try to make lemonade out of lemons and we create a buck trap with those does and that food. But any way you look at it, you're gonna lose bucks from year to year. That's just plain reality.